everybody, and welcome to another episode of Chai Talk with Wajhat Lee for the Left Hook Substack, where I talk to subject matter experts and my friend Francesca Fiorentini, who has her own Substack. She has her own podcast. She has her own YouTube show, The Bituation Room. You have to subscribe to her YouTube show and her Substack. And today I've invited her to talk about Ben and Jerry's and Miss Rachel and an NYU grad student. What do they all have in common? Why are we talking about all these three disparate individuals? Because, folks, what we're witnessing in real time is some good news. Miss Rachel is getting a lot of flack and a lot of just bullshit mainstream media framing, which we'll talk about, because she had the audacity to humanize Palestinian children. Ben and Jerry's, yes, the co-founder of Ben and Jerry's was arrested yesterday. Why? Because he was protesting the United States supporting Israel with weapons to carry out its genocide.
I think it was the Ben. I think it was Ben.
It was the Ben. It was Ben Cohen, the co-founder of Ben and Jerry's. The Ben of Jerry's. So far, Ben is my favorite of the Ben and Jerry's, and I will have to purchase some Ben and Jerry's today, even though I'm trying to lose weight and stay marginally overweight. And then finally, if you haven't followed Detention, near NYU valedictorian, I want to get their name properly. The NYU valedictorian.
I think Logan Rosa. Rosos.
Rosas, the NYU University Gallatin student chair and LGBTQIA plus member Logan Rosas took advantage of his platform at the graduation ceremony to, wait for it, it's really controversial, condemn the genocides and atrocities in Gaza and also the complicity. And because of that, NYU is threatening to withhold his diploma. All three individuals have been called anti-Semites. All three individuals have felt the wrath of the pro-Israel lobby. And I have invited Francesca because let's just piss off all the right people. Francesca, your take on what we're witnessing this week with all these people not bending the knee, all these people, Ben Cohen, by the way, is Jewish, saying, no, I'm willing to get arrested. And furthermore, some other good news, Rumeza Ostrich was released from detention. Badr Khansuri was released from detention. Also, Mohsen was released last week, the Columbia grad student who got detained by ICE when he was going to his immigration, his citizenship exam. He thought, yay, I'm going to go to the citizenship exam. I'm going to be a citizen. And nope, they detained him. All three of them are released. And this has happened in this week. Your take, I think this is good news.
Yeah, I mean, the release of Badr Khansuri and Rumeza Öztürk this week has been really heartening. These are, separate judges, in all of these cases that have said, absolutely not. This is not a reason to detain somebody, especially somebody who's going through the immigration process and following the letter of the law. And so I hope it is a warning to the Trump administration and the regime that they cannot imprison people for speaking out about Palestine. My continued worry is that we separate out people being detained for political speech and, undocumented people who are, day laborers and grandmothers and just, so the fight continues. So it's sort of still bittersweet. But surely if we can draw any fucking lines in the sand, it is, you cannot be detained and arrested for your speech, right? That is huge. This is about preventing us from entering into, as we've talked about, a World War II Japanese internment style reality whereby Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims, you name it, are detained simply because they are deemed a threat, because we're in an invasion. Oh, not the Venezuelan invasion. No, not the invasion from the southern border. The Palestinian invasion. What? It doesn't matter. They can't even keep it straight. So yeah, that is good news. The other stuff, Watch, I've got so many thoughts.
Yeah,
I mean, where do you start?
Fire the thought. Well, some good news. Just 13 minutes ago, a judge ruled that Mohsen Madawi, who is the Columbia grad student, the individual we were talking about, who went to what he thought was his citizenship test and was detained, he can attend his Columbia graduation. So that's some good news. Look, folks, you got to find the small little morsels of silver lining in what is clearly a dangerous fascist territory that we've entered, where grad students in the United States of America are literally being kidnapped in the broad daylight in the middle of a street, a suburban street, by ICE, masked ICE members. simply for the thought crime of co-writing an op-ed, right? That's what happened to Rameza Ostrich. Mohsen Madawi, zero crimes, zero crimes. A model, well, soon to be, inshallah, citizen, a person who did outreach to Jewish American groups, right? Condemned anti Semitism and Islamophobia. Zero crimes. They wanted to make an example of him. They detained him. Mahmoud Khalil, zero crimes. He missed out on the birth of his child, right? He is another Colombia pro Palestinian activist currently detained in Louisiana, where Rumeza Ostrich was. And
Yeah.
as of this recording, folks, today, in the year 2025, the Trump administration is going up to this Supreme Court, this corrupt Supreme Court, and saying, you know what? The Constitution and the 14th Amendment, we don't care about that. We want to end birthright citizenship because we're a bunch of white supremacists and racists. And some Supreme Court justices are concerned and troubled by it. Who? Alito and Thomas. Blatantly unconstitutional, folks. This is happening in real time. What Francesca just said is not imaginary, it's not hyperbolic, it's not hysterical. This is happening in real time. And Francesca, we always have to remind people that there are 238 individuals, brown individuals, including Abrego Kilmar Garcia, without due process, were kidnapped and sent to die in a foreign gulag in El Salvador. That is also happening as we speak.
I mean, they're still there. It's just like, it's wild. Like Badr Khansuri of Georgetown University, he just was released. It was 2 months. He has 3 kids. I mean, like you have 1,800 kids. We've gone over this, and imagine being disappeared for 2 months without them. I mean, your wife would really kill you. She would detain you on herself, except in the
Absolutely.
house, if this happened to you. But I mean, you just think about these children. And speaking of children, I really got to talk about Miss Rachel here for a second, because I am the mom of a 2.5-year-old who loved Miss Rachel, loves Miss Rachel currently, and I want to urge everyone.
Can you tell Francesca before we talk about the story who Miss Rachel is? Because you know, and I know because we're parents, but talk to her about who she is and what she does, because I think it's very important.
Right. So Miss Rachel has a son who was slow in speech development. And so she, I think, was always like a musical theater person, and started doing a little bit of education, and then started doing YouTube videos specifically for her son, which is amazing. And everyone should watch the Zateo interview with Miss Rachel. It is truly both heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time. But if you know people who work with children and who do like children's entertainment, some of them are like just doing it for whatever. Like, okay, they saw a lane. Miss Rachel literally believes so deeply in the rights of children, in children learning, especially learning speech early on. Again, her son was a late learner. And so she blew up during the pandemic. She did a lot of videos, and they're very adorable, little simple. She's got a really high pitched voice, which can be grating. But then when you get to know her, it's like, oh my God, she's so endearing. And she has spoken out for Gaza. And what's interesting about that watch, and what I learned from the Zateo interview, is that she already wanted to do advocacy for children. So she
Mm.
started working with Save the Children, and then October 7th happens, and the genocide begins. And so it's like, okay, where is there more of a need, or as she calls it, an emergency situation for children than in Gaza? And she's been called anti-Semitic, she's been called selective, but she's like, look, when there are children in emergency situations, as an educator, as someone who does entertainment for children, we give special attention to those children. So she has done everything from talk to the mother of Hind Rajab, who was murdered by Israeli forces in her car while she called and begged for help, a 6-year-old. Also, the name of the building occupation that the Columbia students took part in, Hind's Hall, the name of the Macklemore song. And she continues. My God, watch. I thought, surely Miss Rachel's gonna say a little bit. She's gonna do a little something, and then she's gonna back off of it. She's not gonna touch it. No, she's doubling, tripling. I'm getting chills thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know what it is. It's not even that time of the month for me, but I am like so moved by these people, and someone like Miss Rachel, who has such a purity. And I'm not religious. She is. Her shows are not, but she has such a purity of approach to children's education and learning, and really human rights for kids. And that we're in a time when the right is like, oh, our children are being infected by the woke and the trans, and you're like, Bro, you don't give a shit about kids. You don't give
Nope.
a shit about them when they're being blown apart. You don't give a shit about them when they are trans and they want to be supported in so doing. You don't even give a shit about them when they want to learn emotions, which is quite literally what educators like Miss Rachel do, teaching you about your emotions, teaching about taking a breath. You know, if only the Trump administration fucking watched some more Miss Rachel, maybe they could better approach their fellow American, the people that they upon which they govern, right?
Well, the number one killer of children and young teens in this country is now guns. They're taking away fluoride from water, but they have no problem putting in pollutants because there's going to be no regulations. They don't believe in climate change. And by the way, folks, yeah, measles is skyrocketing because they're also anti-vax. But yes, they love the kids. They love the kids so much that they're perfectly fine supporting Israel as Israel is flattening Gaza. And as of this week, we know, and even Israelis themselves are admitting in a New York Times piece that Gaza is at the brink of starvation thanks
Yep.
to Israel's blockade, right? So yeah, Gaza has been flattened. At least 45,000 people, mostly civilians, have been killed, but that number is probably much higher. According to the Lancet, it's probably 75,000. More children have been killed by Israel in the past year and a half than all the other war zones combined. It was already a humanitarian crisis. So Miss Rachel, folks, hasn't talked about 48, 67, the borders, Balfour Declaration. No, all she says is, I care about children. My
Yeah.
concern is about children. I care about Israeli children, Palestinian children. And for the past year and a half, I'm seeing Palestinian children being killed. I'm here to advocate for children's security and safety. And I don't know if you saw this, Francesco, read about this, but she really got moved and motivated because she saw a video of Palestinian children learning their lessons, right? Under rubble watching her video. So she saw a
Ugh.
video of two Palestinian kids literally under rubble in Gaza watching clips. And she's like, oh my God, these kids are learning because all
Yeah.
the schools are gone, folks. The schools are all blown up in Gaza. So she's like, all right, as an educator, as a human being, as a mother, at the very least, can I not, can I at least not talk about Palestinian children? And the answer is no, because here's the New York Times framing today. Why top celebrity Miss Rachel waded into the Gaza debate.
The
That's
Gaza
the headline.
debate.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's the
I
headline.
love the debate
Wait,
we're
and then it
having.
continues. And here's the sub. Facing criticism, Rachel Accurso, Miss Rachel, defends making the plight of children in Gaza a primary focus on her social media feeds. This is where we are in 2025, Francesca.
I mean, they think they're doing a bang up job. And a lot of the people who sadly read the New York Times uncritically, which I think you should read it, but you should read it very critically, think they're doing a bang up job. It's just really depressing. Everyone subscribe and watch Zateo. Go listen to what she said. Listen to the words coming out. I mean, they interview her in this article, but they also give credit to the Stop Anti-Semitism, Twitter account. These are
Both
accounts that
sides.
are Yes, these are accounts that are trying to, again, very much in lockstep with Marco Rubio's plans, are tweeting at Marco Rubio and others in the administration to get people like, Mosa Madawi and Mahmoud Khalil and Rumeza Ozturk and Badr Kansouri, getting them arrested. I mean, this is no joke. We are not fucking playing here.
Well,
And
Francesca, you said that Stop Anti-Semitism labeled a curso. Yes, Miss Rachel, wait for it. The anti-Semite of the week, and the New York Post reported sent a letter urging Attorney General Pam Bondi, who was paid $150,000 a month by Qatar back in the day, to investigate whether a curso is receiving funding to further Hamas's agenda.
I mean, this is the I think we need to take this in the long view of truly a liberated Palestine, truly a liberated I mean, honestly, a liberated Israeli people as well, which is that justice is winning. That when they're so desperate that they have to attack a children's YouTube star for standing up for against child famine, Rachel has not gone after. I mean, you could even critique her by saying, "Hey, why don't you name who's doing the bombing? Why don't you name what's happening?" She sticks squarely in. No child should be in this situation. Gaza is the youngest population on the planet. End of story. And they still find the time to call her an anti-Semite because they are desperate. And so, in the long view of someone who truly wants to see liberation for everyone in the region, for democracy, for an end to apartheid in the region, this is looking like a W to me because they're just grasping at straws. And the other thing is like, Waj, I mean, your kids are maybe a little bit older, but like, yo, you try to pry Miss Rachel from people's hands, they will go to war. Like there's no like okay, well, gee, who do you love more, the state of Israel doing a bang up job over here, or Miss Rachel? Let me think about
Mm,
it for
mm.
5
Let
seconds. Like, I'm gonna go with Miss Rachel every
3 seconds.
goddamn time.
3 seconds, because the
$3.
first second you're like, did you actually ask me that? The second would be, oh, they did ask me that, and the third second would be like, Miss Rachel.
Yes, exactly.
Politics is downstream from culture, and it's fascinating to see in our lifetime, Francesca, because I have some gray hairs. That what we've seen in the past year and a half is a radicalization of young people, because young people in real time were streamed a genocide. They
Yeah.
saw babies being killed. They're seeing Palestinians being starved, and they, for the life of them, cannot rationalize in any way, shape, or form why the United States is doing this, which is why you've seen the polls that overwhelmingly, when it comes to young people, they reject Israel's genocide, occupation, apartheid, right? Like literally in a
Yeah.
year and a half, people have become radicalized. And speaking about young people, if young people are indeed the future, let's go to the story about NYU. I had some friends who were there and they saw this because their son was graduating. And they said after this valedictorian made this controversial speech, go see the speech, it's only 3 minutes long. Um, Logan Rozos, right, took advantage again of the graduation ceremony to condemn the genocide, the atrocities in Gaza. He talked about consciousness, he talked about morality, he talked about the complicity, right? He was given a standing ovation. Now, today, what's happening is pro Israel groups condemn anti Israel remarks at NYU graduation. Again, he was against the genocide. He was against the genocide of Palestinians, right? Most people cheered. And then Anti Defamation League spokesman, graduation should be a time of celebration, not a venue for spreading hate and division. Quote, no student, especially Jewish students, should have to sit through a politicized rhetoric that promotes harmful lies about Israel during such a personal milestone. Rami Youssef, comedian and actor, was invited to Rutgers to give the commencement speech. Pro Israel groups tried to bar him. They
Yeah.
said because his presence would make some Jewish students uncomfortable. Rami Youssef, when he hosted SNL, said what? Ceasefire, release the hostages, free Palestine. Oh, and he also just happens to be Arab and Muslim. So the presence of an Arab and Muslim, the presence of a Palestinian, the presence of a Turkish Muslim woman wearing hijab, and simply exercising their free speech to say, hey, end the genocide, end the occupation, that, according to the ADL, is politicizing rhetoric and promoting harmful lies. But Elon Musk doing a Sieg Heil, he's misunderstood.
I mean, we
These people
really
are pieces of
live.
crap, man. ADL, F the ADL.
No,
What a show.
and it's really upsetting too because we do need actual honest trackers of anti-Semitism in this country. I would direct you to an entire fucking movement called MAGA that has dabbled in anti-Semitism ever since its inception, and beyond. Right, the right is constantly the biggest purveyors of anti-Semitism. So just that's number one. I mean, we are living in a moment where children are starving and other students think that the presence of a Muslim is offensive to them. Like that's an equal footing of genocide, a Muslim person existing. Like, I mean, it's just wild. It's wild. And I just want to say, I went to NYU. I paid way too much to go to
Ah,
NYU. I am an alum of NYU. And I did call this morning to protest because Logan Rosos is being denied his diploma because of what he
yeah.
said. Now, guys, what he said, and Waj is right, it is the most run of the mill baseline. What he did was literally state facts. He says, according to international bodies, according to the possibly the ICJ, right? Allegations of a genocide, preventing the births of Palestinian babies, targeting hospitals, all of these things, starving a population. These are qualifiers of genocide. All Logan said was there's a genocide going on, and I would be remiss to not use my platform and the amount of people in this room to call it out and say that it is being funded by US taxpayer dollars and our complicity. That is all
Yep.
he said. He did not even say NYU, because as an alum, I know that NYU is invested in weapons contractors,
Yep.
likely Israeli, technology and other sectors that are benefiting from, this genocide. So he didn't even finger his own school, and they still freaked out and are denying him his diploma. Look, I protested the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan during my time at NYU. We nearly did a sit-in, but it got foiled at the last minute. But we did mass actions, teach-ins, die-ins. We were super active. The NYPD also targeted us. However, the level of complicity that NYU it's in these 18 months has shown with law enforcement like NYPD and sicking them on their own students is absolutely unprecedented. It is
Columbia
disgusting. It is
University as
wild.
well.
Oh yeah, Columbia's gotten all the attention, which I feel like is taking the shine off of NYU is also doing this, and people need to call.
University of Michigan and UPenn. And you're right. Listen, folks, uh, to make it personal, right? When I was 20, about to turn 21 when 9/11 happened, I was a student leader of the Muslim Student Association, and I was at UC Berkeley. Like Francesca, we were out in the streets. I always joke that like that entire year was me becoming an accidental activist, right? Because they went after us, right? And not just after us and Muslims and anyone who looked Muslimy. If you recall, anyone who's opposed George W. Bush and the war for about 2 or 3 years, they were canceled, right? Susan Sontag was canceled. Dixie Chicks
That's
were
right.
canceled. So
That's
imagine
right.
when you were brown and Muslim, what happened to our communities? Enemies of the state, axis of evil,
Infiltrated.
terrorists, Al Qaeda infiltrated. You hate America, right? And even then, it was scary as hell, right? Like there were FBI agents sent to mosques, mosque crawlers, community rakers, right? FBI people just knocking on doors. People didn't know their rights, right? Bullshit cases, the Lodi case, right? I mean, it was terrifying. And still, many of us, we marched and we were on the right side of history. And our representative, Barbara Lee, was on the right side of history.
Ugh,
And she was
yeah.
demonized for years, hate mail for years. But we were right, folks. It took America and the world a while to catch up. But we never even had at that time what Francesco was saying when America lost its mind. For those of you who are young, America lost its mind. And even then, it wasn't as bad as what we've seen in the past year and a half against college students. And let's be honest here, because we always try to be honest. MAGA is racist as F, and proof of its anti Semitism. You can't make this shit up. Yesterday, one of these 59 South African refugees, not a refugee because there's no white genocide, one of these white South African immigrants posted an anti Semitic comment upon arriving in America
Was that
because,
yesterday?
of
That's
course,
so amazing. That was like, oh my god, oh my god,
it's
my
just
guy.
a
Wait a few months. Wait a few months before you
it,
go,
no,
full white
but like
nationalist.
but not just MAGA. And let's be honest here. And I want to bring this up because look, there are a lot of Jewish Americans. When they say it's oh, you all hate, it's all anti-Semites. Ben Cohen is a Jew. A lot of these student leaders are Jewish Americans. When they say not in our name, that's exactly it. They're saying not in our name. We're Jews, not in our name. People who are Zionists might support the creation of Israel, support the security of Israel. Even now, they're saying no, no to this war, ceasefire. Ben Cohen, Jewish American, Ben and Jerry's, he's saying no. So try to pit and divide us and say, oh, everyone hates Jews. That's absolute nonsense. And then they're saying these are self-hating Jews. No, they're just against occupation, apartheid, and a genocide. But I have to bring this up. This could not have happened, folks, without the Democratic establishment and the Biden administration being lockstep with AIPAC and the pro-Israel lobby in its crackdown of dissent, in its crackdown of pro-Palestinian activists, and its support of Netanyahu's genocide. And I don't know if you saw this, but I wanted to talk to someone about this because it infuriated me. Last month in April, Deborah Lipstadt, the Biden administration's anti-Semitism envoy, Deborah Lipstadt, who was revered as one of the scholars of anti-Semitism, when they asked her, what do you think about the Trump administration cracking down on immigrants, cracking down on pro-Palestinian activists, deporting them, denying their visas? She said, and I quote, to depict some of these people as martyrs and heroes is ludicrous. And she supported the crackdown, but said it must be done thoughtfully with due process. That's Deborah Lipstadt, Biden's envoy on anti Semitism, who gave a green light to the abduction and kidnapping, let's be honest, of Rumeza Ostrich, Mahmoud Khalil, and Mohsen Madavi. People don't make the connections. Democrats hate it when I talk about it, but I said, I'll say it again. The genocide is happening right now in Gaza thanks to Biden and Trump and the
Yes.
Democratic establishment.
And
Am I
and I
wrong?
You're not, and I think, Deborah Lipstadt also, guys, anti-Semitism envoy, as Waj said, she also made a beeper joke. Remember when Mehdi
Oh
Hassan
yeah,
went on
yeah,
CNN
yeah.
and that asshole Ryan, whatever the hell his name was like, um, okay, well, because Mehdi was like, I, support the Palestinian people, and Ryan was like, oh, do you want a beeper? Deborah Lipstadt also made a beeper joke. Straight
Wow.
up made a beeper joke while she was in office. Because what she said a couple months ago, she's out of office. So you could say, okay, she's unleashed. No, no, no. Deborah Lipstadt was in office in her post as anti Semitism envoy.
October.
And right. And she said this. And so okay. The other thing I want to say, because Blue MAGA gets really mad at me. Number one, they get mad at saying Blue MAGA because people don't think that there's a Blue MAGA. But there are a lot of folks who like to blame Palestine protesters for Trump's victory. And I'm telling you for the 1 millionth time, it is not true. It
Nope.
did not happen. That is not what happened. And in fact, just as Biden took advantage of the 2020 BLM George Floyd momentum, he should have taken advantage of the pro Palestine, anti genocide, human rights momentum in his favor. And he did not. He threw
He did
down
not.
with Bibi Netanyahu. He never pressured Bibi Netanyahu. And, this morning, Waj, we all have these moments. This morning, my thought was like, no one should ever get it twisted. I will never throw down with MAGA, ever. I will never throw down with fascists. However, we are where we are right now because of the inefficiency, because of the ineffectiveness, because of
Yeah.
the fecklessness of the Democratic Party. These
Yeah.
motherfuckers were supposed to get us out of the threat of fascism. Biden, a transitional candidacy into what? Into another 4 years or more of Donald Trump? Fuck the Democratic Party, man. They have absolutely taken their eye off the ball, and we're now targets because of them. So the way I feel about that is the way that, I think more people can get on board with that these Democrats have really shown their whole ass by not Trump proofing the White House when they were in the executive branch, by not reining in some of the worst things. Like, why not abolish or dismantle ICE in those 4 years that Biden
Absolutely.
was in office? And he didn't. And so he primed himself for this. And so I want us to link the genocide, with this broader fecklessness of Democrats because they are one and the same. And
Yep.
even if that is not your issue or you don't understand why people are over focused on it, that's fine. But know that that is part of this complete abdication of leadership, of responsibility, of democracy, really, of enshrining and protecting our democracy that the Democratic Party has been getting away with for decades. And I say that with zero love for the right or zero vote your fears, vote defensively, because when push comes to shove, that is where I will vote. But like, we just need to have a coming to Jesus moment more, and we don't.
No, we now we do, because I had the same rant with Danielle earlier this week, and we warned everyone, like, if you're a Democrat, I know you don't like hearing criticism, but overwhelmingly people agreed, and it seems like the majority agrees because the Democratic Party, its favorability rating, it's in the gutter. Underwater is also Donald Trump, but folks, that doesn't mean that it's corresponding to people going to the Democrats, right? They're
Yeah.
sick and tired of the Democratic establishment, and people don't like to hear this, but President Biden went all in with Bibi Netanyahu. The base was telling him even last year. The poll numbers were coming out even last year. Folks, they didn't even bring a Palestinian speaker to the DNC. They said, shut up, shut your mouth. You get in line. You're going to vote for us anyway. You're not going to vote for Donald Trump. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do what we want, and you're going to go along with the plan, or else what? And you know what people said? We're going to stay at home. And a
Yeah.
YouGov poll came out in April and said the number one reason why Democrats didn't show up, it wasn't just Muslims and Arabs. A majority of Muslim and Arabs still voted for Kamala Harris. I wrote an article telling people to vote for Kamala Harris. Francesca told people to vote for Kamala Harris because the lesser of two evils is exactly that, lesser. And there's no equivocation between Kamala Harris and MAGA, right? If you look at all these other issues, I made all
No.
those points. But you have to be clear and you have to be honest. You have to do a real honest auditing. The Democratic Party and the Democratic establishment, even now, I'm going to say something you might think is controversial, not you, Francesca, but people watching. They're more in bed with AIPAC than even MAGA. And I'll give you an example. Donald Trump did something that Joe Biden could have done. You know what he did? He bypassed Israel, directly talked to Hamas, and got back that American hostage held in
Yep.
Gaza. I
Yep.
went on MSNBC 7 years ago. You all can watch it on YouTube. And I wrote this piece on settlers in the Atlantic. I did a 5 minute, interview with Mika Brzezinski. No one told me I was going to debate Barry Weiss. I did a 5 minute piece, and the next thing you know, Barry comes on the set, and Barry
Oh my
says, "Yeah, we're
God.
gonna we're gonna do a debate." I'm like, "Okay." I was on 35 minutes of sleep. It was during Ramadan, right? So
Oh my
not only
God.
I didn't come on as a commentator, I came on as a reporter, right? And 30 minutes sleep, no one told me, and now we're debating.
Oh,
So
Jesus.
I got my licks in. You all can see the video, right? I got my licks in. This is a true story. Joe was taking a break, right? It's like a 5 hour show. So Joe was on the side drinking his coffee. Mika goes quiet. Mika knows what's up, folks. Her father was in the Jimmy Carter administration. She knows about the occupation, the settlements. Joe comes in, shoves her aside, takes over. Now it's 2 versus 1. Joe and
Oh my God. Oh
Barry
my
versus me,
God.
right? And then it ends with this. Are you an advocate? Who do you want America to talk to? I said the Palestinians, even Hamas. And I said, if Donald Trump, this is Donald Trump's first administration, if Donald Trump can exchange love letters with a North Korean dictator,
Yep.
then why not talk to Hamas if it brings peace in the region? And
Yep.
Joe Barry then said, okay. And so because Trump there's a fissure right now, Francesca, that's happening because there are, wait for it, anti-Semites in MAGA, America first, right? They're against Israel because of the anti-Semitism and also because they say, why should we spend money on Israel when we have friggin' potholes here? So there's a fissure. There's Christian nationalists, there's the pro-Israel lobby, and there's people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owen right now who sound a lot like pro-Palestinian activists, which is hella weird. But I digress. There's fissures. So Donald Trump did two things that Biden could have done, which Democrats don't like hearing. He bypassed Israel, went directly to Hamas, right? And of course, quid pro quo with Qatar, he got a jet. And the other thing he did that Biden could have done because he still had power, he removed the sanctions from Syria. Biden could have done it, but he didn't. So, Francesca, am I
What
am
did
I
that
wrong here?
do? What did it connect the dots for the Syria sanctions?
Because Syria, when it comes to the sanctions with Syria, by that time already you had the rebels who had taken over and they were making a transition to try to have a democratic leadership. So the sanctions then kind of cripples Syria and this new leadership, right? Which, despite its flaws, so far, right, is learning from the mistakes of Libya and other countries
Sure,
and Yemen,
sure.
right? And they're like, all right, we're not going to engage in, civil war. We're not going to engage in going against Shias and anyone else who doesn't agree with us.
That's right.
So you get a win. And so Biden could have done it, but he didn't. Biden also could have used the Supreme Court giving literally Donald Trump absolute immunity and flexed his powers. You have nothing to lose, right? You see a genocide happening in Israel. You have nothing to lose. Call it out, withhold funds,
I've
withhold
said
arms,
this
and
before.
he went
We
all
all
in.
know. We all know that Golda Meir and Joe Biden had a romantic picnic on the hillside overlooking a bunch of settlements, and she rocked him like a baby and said, "Everything the light touches is yours." And that is what happened. You can look it up, and he's been a Zionist ever since. And now young people, especially, don't associate Zionism with good things. Okay, they associate it with colonialism. They associate it with apartheid, and they associate it with ethnic and religious superiority. And Joe Biden is of a generation. I mean, this is sort of the whole thing, right? It's like Joe, it didn't matter that he was old, although until it did, it mattered that his thinking was old. Joe
Yeah.
Biden should have never fucking been president. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He should have never been president. Yes, there were good things. No one's denying there were not good things. But those good things could have also happened under a Bernie Sanders presidency. Shit, under a Pete Buttigieg presidency. God forgive me. I mean, I hated Pete at the time, but this was the point. The status quo did not want anything other than Joe Biden. Obama makes the call. All the centrists fall in line. They drop out of the race. And of course, COVID hits, and the rest is history. So it's just like this was the wrong guy. It couldn't have been a worse person for this time. And I just want to say, everyone should definitely check out Jeremy Scahill and Drop Site News. They've been doing excellent reporting about these new negotiations that are happening. Kind of, I want to call it like dumb guy diplomacy that the Trump
Mhm.
administration is engaged in, which basically means they're kind of going at this with fresh eyes. And they're like, yeah, we'll meet with Hamas, whatever. But it turns out actually it's a good thing to meet with Hamas in this moment, right? You know, I would argue less good, just no conditions meeting with North Korea, but I do think diplomacy with all nations should happen. You compare that obviously to Russia, where it's like, nah, we're not really gonna, we'll just let you do whatever you want. But Scahill's got great reporting. I don't agree with all of his conclusions. I am much more dubious over whether or not Trump actually is putting daylight between himself and Bibi Netanyahu. Just today, Waj, he reiterated his "we're going to take over Gaza" line.
Oh, yeah.
So the idea that he's turning his back on Israel,
No,
no,
no, no, no.
they're not.
It's all transactional. With Trump, like I said earlier, you just need to know three things. Number one, it's all about the grift. It's about the greed. Number two, it's about the racism. Number three, it's about power. And like I said,
Thank you
the
for
base
breaking that
is
down.
the base is so far in with Israel, with especially white Christian nationalists and the money, that he's not going to abandon it. It just this moment, Qataris gave him a $400 million jet. So he's
Yeah,
telling the world, Israelis, you can give me a $450 million jet, right? Uh,
exactly.
and with
Well,
Israel, he
but
does not
and because
go ahead.
well, no, just to interrupt you there, like because Joe Biden and a lot of the propaganda machine around Israel tells us that the moral and just and righteous thing to do is give Israel an endless pit of money and weaponry to do with whatever they want. And that is, that is the human rights moral thing to do. Well, we all know that's not true. Donald Trump doesn't believe in human rights, doesn't believe in
Exactly.
morality, and doesn't believe in any of that shit. So the whole like, oh, let's work this is how to be a real ally of the Jews is supporting whatever Israel does. That doesn't work on Trump because he's like, he, along with every other country that he's talking about, is like, hey, we're giving you all of this money. What are we getting in return for it? That's his whole MO, right? I mean, the only country he doesn't have smoke for is Russia, and that's because he's a Manchurian candidate. But this is the point, like, he has smoke for every other country. And so he even directs that smoke against Israel more so than Joe Biden or honestly a lot of Democrats ever did.
That you have to be honest about that. We have to be honest about that. And also the going back to the racism and anti-Semitism of MAGA is that they're weaponizing anti-Semitism and Jews as a cudgel to bludgeon universities' free speech and dissent. And Jews, and especially those Jews who supported the war, are now coming around saying, "Oops, we made a mistake," because Jewish Americans, in particular, know that when democracy and rights and civil liberties are threatened, the groups that are screwed the most are the most marginalized, and that includes Jewish Americans. So
Yep.
simultaneously, they're saying we're defending anti-Semitism, but they're being anti-Semitic, and they're using anti-Semitism to actually attack universities and their critics and immigrants and people of color. And let's be honest here, folks, we're not talking about old people. We're talking about outdated thinking. When it comes to the Democratic
Yes.
establishment, let's
Yes.
look at Senator Schumer. Let's look at Hakeem Jeffries. Let's look at Fetterman. They're lockstep with AIPAC right now. You haven't
Well,
heard them talk
Fetterman
about
is
well,
he's an
Fetterman's another thing, but
island unto himself,
let's
but
think about
yes.
like Jeffries and all these other people, right? They're still lockstep, right? They still don't call out the genocide. They still don't criticize Israel. They haven't said a peep too much about Mahmoud Khalil. All these people in the first month of the Trump administration, they saw the polls and they did the focus groups, and Donald Trump was plus in immigration in his immigration policy. So what did they do? They gave him the votes for the Laken Riley Act, right?
Ugh.
And it took Van Holland, who's been on the right side when it comes to Palestinians and Israel, he's the one who went to
Has he
Maryland.
also?
Yeah, Van Holland, he was the one who actually said limit
Oh,
weapons to.
oh, wait, I remember this.
No, he's been on it.
Yes. I remember him from that was like on. Okay, I got to go back to that.
Yeah, he's
That's
been one of the
crazy.
few. He's been one of the few who are like, we should put limits. This is too much, right? And so he went to Maryland, and look, who's being rewarded? The people who are speaking out. But
Yeah.
I feel like the establishment is still in 2024 mode. Shut up. These are the rules. Get in line. This is what we're going to do, and you're going to vote for us.
Well, and you see that on full display right now this week because David Hogg is effectively being forced out of the DNC and his vice chair position because he is openly saying and raising money to try to primary again Democrats who are not fighting as much. And the DNC sees this as a massive betrayal,
Yep.
disloyalty, even though even though we all know the DNC actually doesn't really play a big part in congressional primaries. And even though David Hogg has offered to put up a firewall between himself, his organization that he started, and any internal communications about those primaries, basically like, look, you could cut me out of this. I will not be DNC chair for these moments if we're backing any candidates going up against incumbents. He's trying to do all these things, but again, this is where the party loyalty needs to be questioned, because we need upstart candidates. We need insurgent candidates. We need the AOCs. We need the Bernies who are independents who are now running, right? Like, this all helps us. And they're so wounded by it. Like, oh, the betrayal, we got to kick you out. And you know who you behave like? You're behaving like a MAGA cult when you do that.
I just had my kids asking if they could go to their friend's house. So I had to give them a thumb up while you were talking.
No worries.
I this week, the attack on Hogg, regardless of what you think about him, I'm not like a Hogg stan or I'm against him, but the fact that they have more passion and more fight to attack David Hogg
Yeah.
than they do against this Trump regime, which is literally trying to end birthright citizenship and is detaining and kidnapping brown immigrants. Francesca, something inside me, like that was a check out the interview and the conversation I had with Danielle Moody a couple of days ago. There's something inside us, me and Danielle just broke this week, where like we're just like, like something is just like I can't. Like I'm here for the entire culling of the DNC. I'm here for all these old timers. I'm not talking about age. I'm talking about thinking. I want them to be purged. I want them to be primaried. I want them to be humiliated. I'm done with you. You're about
Yeah.
as useless Uber is useless to me as a second belly button, and a second belly button really, it's just aesthetically unpleasing. It's not harmful. You're actually harmful. You're like a
Yes.
poisonous belly button. There's no fight. You don't read the room. You're not willing to listen to your constituents. You still, to this day, are still listening to overpaid consultants. You
Yep.
are timid. You're using right wing talking points to attack your own base, which is people of color. You're mocking woke, which is just basically people like me and Francesca, right? And meanwhile, you are not lifting up the people who actually are popular. AOC, Jasmine Crockett, Bernie Sanders, Chris Van Hollen, who are showing a fight. Mayor Baraka of Newark
Yep.
became a hero. Why? Because he got arrested because he was like, I want to go and inspect this private detention center run by ICE because I've heard they're doing some unlawful stuff, and they arrested him. Where's the
And
fight,
it's
Francesca?
And you know what? And we saw the lack of fight on the campaign trail, as Trump targets Haitian immigrants. I thought it was a huge miss to like, and I don't want to totally relitigate, but you got to, right? Why not just go travel to Springfield? Go meet with the Haitian migrants, talk to them, humanize them, talk to them about why they're here, what they do, how they contribute to the community. Talk to people who are not Haitian, but who are friends. Like, lean into the bullshit and
There you
combat it
go.
with humanizing people, with
There you go.
trans people. Was also not a trans person on stage at the DNC. And like I want to just say, it's the leadership out of step with the people, because
Absolutely.
at the DNC there were mentions of I think someone mentioned Gaza. Oh, I mean, okay, AOC mentioned working tirelessly for a ceasefire, even though it wasn't happening. But they were the biggest applause lines. Biggest.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone inside said there was the biggest applause lines every time Palestinian human rights were mentioned. Just like at NYU, you hear the students, the standing ovation, people are going crazy. It's the administrators, it's the leaders, it's the authorities that are like, nah, we can't. No humanity, no empathy. Um, I have to just shout out really quick before if we wrap. I'm not sure when we're wrapping, but Sherry,
We'll wrap right now because my kids are there, and also Francesca. My sometimes when we do Substack Live, apparently I don't have an iPhone. I'm sorry, I have a Google. The Android has a glitch, so it shows 0 viewers. But are people watching us right now? I can't see any comments, or else
there's 811 people,
I give you guys a shout out, but I can't see anything, so I'm
and
flying blind.
I'm going to shout out Sherry at the Res Nobody to Blame, who's recommending this amazing documentary on Tubi that actually my good friend Paula Newdorf worked on. It's called Vigilante Inc. Everyone check that out. It's great. It's really about the sort of like surveillance state app culture that like makes us want to snitch on one another, and
Mm.
it's very good. It's not really relevant to exactly what we're talking about, but it is in a lot of ways. Let's see. Jules talking about people, kids dying of famine, USA. Oh my god, there's so many comments.
Oh,
John
great.
King, what's up? Daria Stegman, saying that ADL is creating anti-Semitism by being blatantly pro-genocide. PJ Schuster, thank you
PJ,
for
a loyal
uh,
viewer. Thanks, PJ.
Patrick Pagan, who's a loyal viewer of the Frantifa. The audacity is the offense. I think I understand that. Jules also says one of the South Africans has a history of racist comments. Yeah, no shit. I mean,
Shocking.
I mean that's the whole thing. Shout out to Anna and Paula and Francis and Melissa Hockman and who else? Agent 99. There's so many. Victoria Kai. Um,
No, that's awesome. Thank you
Poetic
all for
Pisces
watching.
says they
Oh, go
handed
ahead.
America over to MAGA on a silver platter. They did
Yep.
hand America over to MAGA.
But you know
Oy.
what? He's never gotten the plurality of votes. He's underwater, and they don't have the numbers, folks. We are still the majority. And we have to do what we can with the time that we have left, with the powers that we have. And the one thing that we have is a voice, and we have to use it. And so know that Francesca and I, as you've seen from the past hour, we don't bend the knee to Democrats or Republicans. We praise when they deserve praise, and we criticize when they criticize. And just because we criticize the Democratic establishment, which deserves it, doesn't mean we're MAGA. Trust me, folks, we told people to vote for Kamala Harris because, yes, the lesser of two evils is exactly that. And I criticize to make better. I'm not interested in restoration. I'm interested in reform. Joe Biden and the
No, but
establishment, they want restoration. They want to go back to the
yeah,
halcyon days of the 20th century. And it wasn't that great for poor people and workers and women and transgender people, right? So we want reform. The time is now, especially after, as they're coming after our rights. They're coming after the Constitution. They're kidnapping our people who look like us. They're going after our universities. They're going to come after you next. That's what fascists do. So you have to always, always fight a fascist, never ever bend the knee, never ever be complicit. And I want to tell people, think about how you want to be remembered in your children's history books, right? The villain or the hero, right? And sometimes the
oh my
hero,
god, are you watching Andor?
I already saw it.
Fuck. Fuck.
I saw it. I saw it. Have you seen it?
So I haven't finished it.
Oh, we have to talk about it once you finish. Let's make that our next Thursday. Me and you talk about Andor.
Yes. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I do want to, because I agree with you, and I think Muse Tudor, not to shout you out, but or call you out, who says now is not the time to shit on Democrats. I would actually argue now is the perfect time to shit on Democrats because we need to clean up our side of the street. Look, we are not
Absolutely.
in MAGA. We are not
Absolutely.
Republicans. We cannot affect, we can protest, we can make calls, but we cannot really affect the agenda of MAGA. What we can do is affect the Democratic Party's agenda. And so if they are not fighting and if they are not fighters, if they are giving green light to either Trump's nominees or Chuck Schumer basically is allowing Trump to sell cryptocurrency from the office of the presidency, in addition to green lighting his budget. No, 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 no. Now is the time. It's the
Yep.
only and the thing we can do is to actually dump on the Democrats and get them out of here. I mean, I literally think, Waj, like very concretely, I think Schumer needs to step down as leader. He needs to step down as leader. I think Jeffrey should step down as leader. I'm not saying they should step down. I don't think Schumer should run for reelection for sure.
Nope.
But like you need to pass the torch right now because people are dying out here and
There
your
you go.
party is falling apart. And it's like we do this not out of hate. We do it out of love, man. We do this
That's
out
it.
of like we need a better defense than this. And all they're doing is saying, just wait. We're going to wait around. We're going to wait around to 2026 and it's all going to, buddy, people are not going to be here by 2026.
Tell that to Mahmoud Khalil, who's in prison right now, who missed the birth of his kid simply for being Palestinian. Tell that to Rameza Ostrich, who got arrested and detained for a thought crime. And tell that to Abrego Garcia, who has a citizen wife and a citizen child and is stuck in a foreign gulag. You can't eat tomorrow's bread, right? You need bread today. And so all the people who say that, they're people I think are speaking from privilege. Think about the people who are losing their rights, their health, who are literally being erased from the history books as we speak. Think about the kids who are going to get measles, are going to die from measles because you have RFK as the head of our Health and Human Services Department. Think about the freaking toxic water our kids are about to drink. Think about the fact that the National Weather Service can't be trusted, especially as hurricane season's around the corner. Think about the corruption, the grift. Think about the white supremacy. Think about the
FEMA is being defunded. I mean,
Think about all the people with temporary protected status who are going to be kicked out simply because they're brown, right? So you need fighters, folks. And if you're not willing to fight in this moment, you're useless to me. I don't
yeah,
care about your seniority. I don't care if it hurts your feelings. You have a job. You're an elected official. You're a tool, a lever to be used. And once that tool and lever becomes both complicit in my oppression and becomes useless, then it's time to replace the lever and the tool and get a new one. That's
yep,
my take on it. I have no fidelity to any of these politicians. I don't worship any of them. I don't do celebrity crushes on any of them. They're just people. They're people who have chosen to be public servants. And if they're not meeting the moment, bye. Assalamu
yeah,
alaikum. Don't let the door hit you on your booty on the way out. But I feel very strongly about it, especially this week, seeing how the Democrats have used up all their firepower to go against David Hogg, but can't muster a mustard fart for this kid in NYU or friggin' Rumeza Ozturk or Mahmoud Khalil. I'm done with you. I'm done
I'm
with you. If
done.
you're not willing to fight, I'm done with you. And I will
Yep.
use my platform to make sure you're out of the Democratic Party and fighters welcome. There is freaking an opening for fighters, vacancy for fighters. Francesca, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm doing this because my phone's run out of battery and my kid wants something, or else it's sit there
I'm
and talk to
sorry.
you.
Yeah, no,
Francesca's baby's sleeping, which is why she's got a little bit of time.
no, no.
My
She's
three
at
baby.
daycare. She's at
Oh, she's
daycare.
at
Thank
daycare.
God.
So my kids have come back and they're at the door. Francesca, shamelessly promote yourself. How can people find you and support you?
Bituation Room Podcast, frannyfio.substack.com or youtube.com/frannyfio. Live Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Come see me if you're in Pasadena. Next Wednesday, I'm doing my show New World Disorder. May 30th, I'm doing a live Bituation Room at the Elysian Theater in Los
Nice.
Angeles. Just come through to, I do a bunch of shows in LA, so I hope to see you at them.
And Francesca and I were the co-host of America Unhinged on Zateo. You can see a lot of those shows. There's some great interviews there. We're trying to get a season two. Until then, Francesca and I have kind of stumbled upon this every Thursday around 5 p.m. Eastern time. We check in with each other as a Thursday check-in. This is the lefthook.substack.com. It's the left hook. There's no paywalls. Pay what you can. If not, be a free subscriber. Share this if you can. And also, this goes up on my YouTube. I had no idea I had a YouTube. So it goes up on my YouTube. Like,
Yeah.
subscribe, be a super chatter. All those tips that you give to me and Francesca go a long, long way. It helps me buy ice cream for my kids, my 800 hungry kids. And next Thursday, let's do this. Next Thursday, let's discuss Andor, the politics of Andor. Can you finish season two? It's
I
awesome.
think so. I think so. It might have to be the following, but yes,
Fine, fine. Within 2 weeks, we'll do that.
with
Next week, we'll talk about
yes.
something else. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Francesca. As always, be kind, be good to each other, and please, oh, please don't be a fascist. Bye. Thanks,
Bye.
Francesca.
Thank you.